All right, friends, welcome back to the Blessed Family. You know it's going to be good because I'm here with Mrs. Amy Catherine Dodd. And this episode is because of a question we got from one of our listeners. Young lady, I think she's about 18, 19, and she asked a fascinating question. Which books would your wife recommend? Which is awesome. Awesome question because reading books...
really hard.
You know we're big fans of books. Our life would not be the same if not for books.
Yes.
And I'm not just meaning the Bible. I mean books other than the Bible. So I'm going to take Mrs. Dodd through some categories of books. You know, we always like to talk about categories of books. So we have 6 categories of books. Mrs. Dodd is bringing to the table all kinds of books. I've got 2 books that I just added for fun, but
I haven't even read some of those.
But this is mainly...
So when I got the question, we got the question in email, and when I sat and thought about it, like there's a huge array, and I had to think about it for a few days. Like, okay, if there was a young person in their teens and they were like, okay, what books would you recommend for like life? I might potentially get married and have, a family someday, which chances are you will. So that's kind of how I've been thinking over it the last couple of days on what I'd recommend. So it's like a huge variety.
It is a variety. Well, variety is good with books. It's like food.
Yeah.
You need a variety.
Yes.
Being this close to you makes me really happy.
Okay. All
right. So first category is fiction. Mrs. Dodd, tell us about which is my favorite category. Okay, tell us about some good fiction.
Okay, so I think you should just be reading a ton of books. Like, if you're homeschooled or if you're not homeschooled, find good classic book lists and be reading book lists. But one book that I absolutely loved in the fiction category would be Anne of Green Gables. I haven't actually, there's like 8 or 9 of them, and I've only actually ever read the first one multiple times. But when I was reading this, I think I read it through the first time when I finally had kids. And something that became apparent to me that, I don't know, I guess maybe I didn't notice reading books growing up, is it's an old book. So they obviously talk about maybe how they parented or how, culture was, what are we talking about, like 150 some odd years ago. And if I remember right with Anne of Green Gables, one of the big things was, Anne was not allowed to contradict. I might be getting that confused with maybe Little House on the Prairie, but
which is another good series.
That was a theme across it where, the child would contradict the parents, and the parents would always be like, please don't contradict me. And actually, because of reading this, I took that into my parenting.
That became an expression in our house. Don't contradict, which is beautiful. So yeah, and you would you recommend the Little House on the Prairie?
Little House on the Prairie. That would be nonfiction, but yeah, I pretty much.
Oh, that's right. It would be nonfiction.
Pretty much every time I have ever been pregnant, maybe except for the last pregnancy because it was so horrible, I have busted out the entire Little House on the Prairie series the entire time I'm pregnant because I usually don't feel the hottest, and so I just sit down and read a bunch. But pretty much, honestly, any older books, I recommend
Swiss
all the
Family
Jane
Robinson.
Austen, sure, Swiss Family Robinson, Robinson Crusoe.
The Hobbit.
And just keep in mind The Hobbit. I only made it a couple chapters, ironically, but like when you're reading anything like that, enjoy reading it, but also pick, like, for instance, if you're reading Jane Austen, I really like Jane Austen, there's heroines, there's not good characters. Like, this is something Isaiah absolutely loves Jane Austen. Years ago, I would say maybe about 12, I apologize now for any tangents. Years ago, probably about 12 years, I remember hearing this speaker talk about how he does not recommend Jane Austen. He does not think people should read Jane Austen. This was a homeschool speaker. And it doesn't speak anymore. But I remember being kind of flabbergasted at why. And I'm not sure if it's because he hadn't read Jane Austen or if he just classified them in the chick books.
It's because he saw the men as not very masculine because they were always just going around to dances trying to get them.
Okay, but here's where I differ from him, because I like Jane Austen, and so I had my boys read Jane Austen. Isaiah adores Jane Austen. He's read probably all of her books. I would say some of them 4 or 5 times. Like Pride and Prejudice, I think he's read 4 or 5 times. And I remember when he was younger, I'm going to say like 12 or 13 years old, him sitting in a chair, and he would start laughing out loud. He'd giggle out loud. And I'd be like, oh, what part are you reading? And like he would describe the part, And the fact that like a 13 or 14-year-old can read more of a complex writing because it's older and see the humor in it. One, it was, I mean, his was working really well on his brain processing, but two, after he read a bunch of them, he'd be like, "Oh, I want to be like Darcy. I don't want to be like Wickham." So he did pick up good and bad characters. And you can do that with any piece of literature. You look at the good characters, you look at the bad characteristics, stuff like that.
Same ways. And he would also say, "I want to marry a girl that's not a Kitty or Lydia."
Yes. Yep.
But is and he has all.
I don't know. He was picking up really good character qualities.
Yeah,
really. So honestly, anything old, I really like it, and you can pick out good things and bad things with different things.
Jared and I just did a 50 book list, and the first 15 were classics.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I like classics.
All right, so very good. Okay, next. Okay, so we had fiction, now nonfiction novels, which I accidentally threw in.
Yeah, that's okay.
Little House on the Prairie.
That'd be Little House on the Prairie. Okay, another one. Which I only found Hudson Taylor for the camera, but the one that I was actually looking for was Gladys Aylward. So if you have never heard of these brown books, YWAM Publishing, we own probably like 50 of these
Christian heroes then and now.
Okay, so here another rabbit hole tangent. We were at a conference. This was probably a good decade ago, and the woman who spoke, it was a breakout session, and this woman, she was probably one of the best speakers I ever heard. I don't know her name to this day. I've forgotten. But she was a voice actress too. So while she was doing her talk about how important it is to read old missionary biographies, she would do the voices of the characters. Like all of a sudden she'd do an excerpt on Corrie ten Boom or whoever it was. Gladys.
For us?
No, I can't. I'm not a voice actress. But it was a phenomenal talk, and it just talked about how in her opinion, second to the Bible, the most important thing to be reading is missionary Christian biographies, because you can see how they sacrifice. It really inspires you. So anyway, I am holding up Hudson Taylor, which was really good. The one I wanted to hold up was Gladys Aylward. If you do not have these brown books, I highly recommend them. There was a time, I think probably again when I was pregnant, because y'all, my pregnancies are usually pretty bad. I'd bust out one of these a day, and they're really, really good.
They're good.
Character building.
So this, along that line of nonfiction kind of history stuff, is this is called Radiant. It's by Richard Hanula. It's published, I'm sure, by Canon Press, and it's got 50 women in here, from Sabina Wurmbrand to Catherine von Bora to.
I haven't even read this. I've never even seen this book.
I was reading it with the kids for devotions for
I guess I missed.
So it chronologically goes through. Well, it's the follow-up of Trial and Triumph.
Oh yeah,
which introduces
which is good. Mm-hmm.
And so this goes through, and it starts with Perpetua, so it chronologically goes through. So there you go. All right, so fiction, nonfiction. Next, we have books on marriage.
Okay, yeah. I thought, so you probably read a whole lot of fiction and nonfiction for school. Maybe something that you don't necessarily read a whole lot about is marriage. Maybe you do. Maybe your mom or dad gets you a lot of good books. One I haven't read yet, but my older kids have. Ironically, my boys have too, because I want them to know what to look for. Okay. But Preparing to be His Helpmeet would be something along that lines. For mature content, Created to be His Helpmeet. Maybe if you're married already, I definitely recommend Created to be His Helpmeet, especially if you just want to read a few chapters of. I couldn't find the book. Couldn't find it on the bookshelf, but even if it's only the chapters about finding out what type of man you're married to. Mrs. Pearl breaks it up into Mr. Steady, Mr. Visionary, and Mr. Command. And when I read that, Jared is 100% Mr. Visionary, insane. And so realizing, okay, my husband, and it helps you figure it out. But realizing that my husband was a visionary helped me to know how to assist him better in his ministry.
That's right.
But anyway, Isaiah really liked Preparing to be His Helpmeet. It talks about then the different girls that are in this one. But what was this in marriage? Yeah, The Hidden Helpmeet is really good. This is another one that's by Debbie Pearl and another gentleman. But this goes through, and I love it, because it goes through these extremely influential men like Charles Spurgeon and Paul Bunyan and different men like that. And it pretty much talks about how they wouldn't be who they would have been without their wives. And it gives all of these incredible stories about their wives. And so I'm losing my voice. Sorry.
Behind every good man is an amazing woman. So
I guess this doesn't have to do with marriage. Maybe this can just be like character or something. But Lies Women Believe is a really good book, and they have multiples of these. So if you're, I think they have maybe Lies Teenagers Believe, but I mean, I haven't read that one. But
stick with this one. This is good.
When Jared was 6 months old, a bunch of people, I wasn't doing very well because he wasn't sleeping through the night at all. Like I got zero sleep for months. But I read through this book, and it was pretty incredible. Lies Women Believe. I recommend that one. And then there's another book that we've actually recently started reading, and it's called How to Be a Lady. Again, this is a very old book. And who's
1850s.
It by? Where's the Harvey Newcomb. And he wrote one on boys
How to
too.
Be a Man. Yeah.
But we have been reading through this, y'all, and it is phenomenal. It's would be a phenomenal read.
Well, and what's fascinating is a bunch of it shows just how far our culture's come. Like, it's got all these short chapters, and one of them is how women behave in family worship. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, family worship. Like, that was... And, okay, so I only am bringing 2 books to the table. I did one. Here's my last book, and it's for marriage. This is called The Family. It was originally titled The Homemaker. Or no, I'm sorry, Homemaking. It's by J.R. Miller, published in the 1800s. It's really, really good. There are couples that I've married where they'll read through this. You know what I mean.
Officiated their wedding.
And
I don't want anyone to get confused.
Yeah. Did you hear about Jared Dodd? So here you go. Okay, so fiction, nonfiction, marriage. Next we have health. It's a big deal. Mental, physical health.
Okay, so I didn't realize that when I was gonna get married and become a mom, this never would have crossed my mind that you like kind of become the family's nurse more or less. And he calls me that.
Can I say something? Because I thought what you were gonna say is I didn't realize when I got married and became a mom that my mental and physical health was just gonna go
deteriorate.
Yeah, but no, yeah, she is the nurse, and I'm so glad. Can I just say something? All glory to God, but I want to bless this woman. Other than broken bones, by the grace of God, like our kids have had ear infections. They've never had to go to the hospital. Our kids have just had this sickness, and this woman, she does the herbs, oils, whatever it is, and it's awesome. So it's a womanly skill that has been lost. She resurrected in our home.
Well, okay, so one of the reasons why maybe is, so we were going to be missionaries overseas. We actually went to school to be tribal missionaries. Jared has his bachelor's for that. I have my associates in that. And this book, actually, one of the people who was going to be tribal missionaries with us, they had this in their home. And so that's how I even heard about this one. It's called Prescription for Nutritional Healing. And they constantly are updating this. I think almost every other year or so, they come out with a new one.
The main author, for those who are listening, is James Bulk. And there's also Phyllis Bulk. Oh, probably husband and wife. James and Phyllis.
Mm-hmm. But this just goes through tons of different ailments and how to treat them nutritionally. And then also something that I did, I actually have a little booklet out. I need to maybe improve it. It's called like Mama's Home Remedies maybe. And so what I did was, I think maybe a few years into our marriage, we were very much, we're going to go to the hospital for everything. We're going to see doctors for everything. And we did that for quite a few children. And then, I don't know, like around kid number 4, I'm not saying they're bad. Like, I would be dead to this day.
This is online. This is being
yes,
recorded.
I would be dead to this day. I would have died multiple times if it wasn't for hospitals. I'm not against hospitals and going to see doctors. But there was a few times in a row where, at least in our minds, they were in it just for the money. And got hundreds of dollars from us to do absolutely nothing. And I'm like, man, you know, our grandma and grandpas knew how to treat this stuff from home. So this was probably about maybe 12, 13 years ago. I talked to my aunts, my parents. I had some grandpas that were still alive at that time. And pretty much I asked them all what grandma and grandpa's home remedies were, like, you know, 50, 60 years ago. And they had all these things that I had never heard of before. So I started typing it all out, stuff that I would practice stuff on myself before I would do it on the kids, like for whatever, sinus infection, ear infection, stuff like that. And if something worked, I'd type it out. Well, I would say I compiled maybe about 75 pages of stuff. And Jared was speaking somewhere, and they found out that I had that and asked if I could get it in print form. So I do have it on print form. Disclaimer, I wrote it for my kids, basically to say, hey, this is what we did for you, and this is what we did for you. So it's very personal. But
And
we
there
have
might be some typos.
we have sold it. There's probably some typos in there, but it's on Amazon. I'm not sure if you can, maybe you can find it. I don't know if you can find it, but you can buy like old Amish books that have, I don't know, remedies and stuff like that. But I do recommend getting knowledgeable in all of that stuff. Are we just on health? Okay. Well, I'm going to segue that to organization. The one, I mean, I have a few books, but this is the main one I recommend, the nutritional healing book. Okay, I'm going to segue to organization because...
It's a big deal.
Listen, I was not born OCD or have any organization skills whatsoever. Like, my room was always a mess. My mom was always clean, and I was, like, hoping it would skip a generation and maybe I would have some OCD children, and I got none. So, like we all, I mean, we keep the house clean, but I'm not naturally organized on it. I had to read books and books and books and books. One book I got was called Large Family Logistics. I just hit myself in the face with it.
By...
Oh, yeah. For the listeners, by Ken Brenneman. I mean, large family, it doesn't matter if you're a large family, 1 kid, 2 kid, 3 kid. At any point that you feel overwhelmed with the dishes or laundry or cleanup, I mean, any organizational book would be great. This is one that I had read, and I liked it. I don't do everything that she said, but... We definitely tried it, and it's
try
good.
Stuff. There was also a documentary, I know we're talking about books, but on minimalization.
Yeah, but that was a little extreme, to be honest with you.
But it got us thinking.
We definitely, minimalizing helps a lot. Actually, there was a book that I had on Kindle. Darn, now I'm going to, like, send you guys on this goose chase. It was called, like, 23 Things or something. Right. And... Maybe not. Maybe like 50, maybe 52.
Could have been 20. Just try every number.
But basically, your wardrobe is only 52 things, and that like included your shoe. Maybe it was 23, and that included like shoes and jewelry and stuff. And I don't do that. But yeah, I get minimalize. Watch. I know there's like a YouTube channel called The Minimal Mom, which I know we're talking about books, but there's probably lots out there. That was just one that I had, and oh yeah, home. Okay, so our next topic is the home. I actually didn't grab a book on this, but okay, so we're managers of the home, and our homes are supposed to feel comfortable. Yes, organization is definitely one thing, but like our homes are kind of like our bodies in that they reflect kind of who we are and our modesty or our culture values. And so, I mean, if you're somebody who doesn't necessarily like or know how to decorate or have things cute, I would definitely get a book on that. Like, I have a book by Joanna Gaines. I didn't grab it. I don't know what it's called, but Joanna Gaines is the one who has that Fixer Upper show.
Those books are good but dangerous.
Jared doesn't like when I start reading those, but I declutter and I organize better,
and the house
and
is
it
more
looks
beautiful
cute.
when all the dust settles. Yes,
and anyway, yeah.
So put you on the spot.
Okay.
Outside of these books are great.
Yes.
Give us a couple of, like, what are your favorite books? I know that's a wide variety, but do you have any, like...
Okay, so it's been kind of hard. Okay, so I used to bust through books like crazy.
Until you get you pregnant again?
Until I got pregnant with Eden, and my pregnancy with Eden was worse than any of them, and I was so sick that like I couldn't even hold up a book and read it. It was that bad. And for whatever reason, ever since I had her, I haven't picked up, I've tried getting into a couple books, new books that I've never read before, and it's hard. For some reason, it's been hard.
Is that why you're having a hard time reading my books?
I think I'm having a hard time editing Jared's books because of that. But, like, if you're just have a clean slate and I could recommend anything, on my table right now, these Brown books, I think would really fire you up to follow Christ.
Good stories are where to start, right? Like, to become a reader, start with just good, fun stories, whether it's historical, nonfiction, or whether it's fiction books. Just get to reading.
Yeah.
But as you grow, this is spoken to girls, so as you grow into womanhood, then it changes from just cool, entertaining stories to actually learning how to be a homemaker, and how to be a woman and a wife and a mom. And
but you want to be you want to be an educated woman, and one of the best ways to do that, not watching YouTube, probably not listening to podcasts. I don't know, but it's going to be to read books.
Older is better.
Yeah.
Well, Mrs. Dodd, thank you so much.
I hope
it was amazing. And if any of our listeners have any other questions, comments on this, they can always, comment or shoot us an email. And this show was done because a young lady reached out with a question. So if you have questions, you can reach out to us anytime at doddclan7@gmail.com. And thank you so much, Mrs. Dodd. And thank you all. And
I'm glad to be here.
It was fun. Okay. And we'll see you next time.
Okay, bye.